My deepest condolences to those here who witnessed and survived the horrors of last Saturday. Israel is now in war, and our war is against Hamas. But Hamas's war is a war against civilians. It started with this brutal massacre of over 1,300 people, and unfortunately that number is rising because we are still retrieving bodies as we do specialized raids across the border into Gaza. We are collecting bodies. We've had to defuse booby-trapped bodies that were left in homes designed to detonate as people came to pick them up. And in some cases where entire families have been wiped out, we have no one to gather DNA from in order to identify them. So unfortunately, that number is still rising. In addition to that massacre, they abducted some 200 Israeli citizens and are holding them hostage in Gaza. They are firing rockets continuously and indiscriminately into our Israeli population centers. And at the same time, they are using their own population to defend those rockets, to protect those rockets, to hide their military operations, and to evade attack from the IDF, and to exploit any civilian harm for their own purposes. They are not only using their civilian population as human shields, they are also stealing from them. Some of you may have seen that UNRWA was forced to admit a couple of days ago that Hamas people broke into one of their warehouses and stole fuel, enough fuel that could serve their desalination plants for 6 days. Obviously, that did not get to their civilian population. In the first day of the attacks, when they fired rockets into Israel, they hit 9 out of 10 electricity lines going from Israel into Gaza, taking them out of action. They hit 1 out of the 3 water pipes going from Israel, taking it out of action. They destroyed the Erez crossing, where before Saturday, tens of thousands of Gazan workers would come in every day with work permits to work inside Israel. They killed people that worked there that I served with. They abducted others. And the other main crossing into Israel, the Keren Shalom crossing, is under fire as we speak. They also killed their own people. As we saw last night, Islamic Jihad fired a rocket from Gaza intended for Israel. It fell short, it misfired, landed on a hospital. According to the Palestinians' own reports, there are 500 cases of death, but we cannot verify those claims. All these actions of Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad constitute clear war crimes. They constitute clear crimes against humanity, and they may constitute genocide. The war crimes they are committing is intentionally and directly targeting civilians, which is a clear violation of the principle of distinction, which requires you only to direct your attacks against military targets and those involved in the hostilities. They are violating the principle where each side must take steps to protect their own civilian population and separate them from the hostilities. They attacked specially protected objects. On Saturday, they attacked an ambulance and first responders. There were reports that they also stole ambulances from Israel and took them back into Gaza. They have committed the crime of perfidy by dressing as IDF soldiers and dressing as civilians in order to carry out attacks. They have violated the prohibition against taking of hostages, which includes soldiers when you want to use them for bargaining chips. They have violated prohibition against booby-trapping certain objects, including bodies. All these violations are reflected in customary international law. They're reflected in the Geneva Conventions and the additional protocol to the Geneva Conventions, and they're reflected clearly in international criminal law. You may see a reference of that in the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. These crimes also constitute crimes against all of humanity. Crimes against humanity are defined as those that are widespread and systematic and a part of a policy. Hamas's policy is clear. It's stated explicitly in its charter that its intention is to wipe out Israel, kill as many Jews as they can. And these attacks were widespread and no doubt systematic, and they are ongoing. These crimes could also constitute genocide. They have a clear intent to destroy a group or a part of a group, Israelis and Jews, and their intent is clearly to carry it out, and they have tried to carry it out by committing mass murder. Now, this means we are in an asymmetric conflict because on the other side, we have the State of Israel and the IDF. The IDF is the military of a country that is democratic, committed to Western values and the rule of the law. We are subject to oversight, and we work with transparency. The IDF targets military targets. We are targeting Hamas and the Islamic Jihad in Gaza. We are targeting their command and control centers, their rocket depots, terrorists themselves, all in accordance with the principle of distinction. We also take precautions. We have seen in the media that the IDF has, in various means and methods and mediums, given warnings to the civilian population in Gaza. We are trying to evacuate people in northern Gaza, where Hamas is most concentrated. We are trying to evacuate them to southern Gaza. We have issued these warnings, these recommendations to evacuate various means, radio messages, TV, dropping leaflets, using international organizations, and so on. We are asking these people to evacuate to the south of Gaza for their safety. Even though we continue to operate in the south of Gaza, it will be of a less intensity than the north, and it will be only until the fighting is done. We have legal advisors in the IDF who are well trained. We provide education to our commanders, and we provide ongoing legal advice in routine times and during times of emergency. This is not easy. We are fighting an enemy that deliberately places itself under and within and amongst the civilian population. They provide their civilian population with no defenses, no shelters, no safe areas. They block them trying to evacuate the northern Gaza with roadblocks and threats, and they lie. Sasha mentioned the instance of the hospital yesterday. They have no problem saying to the world, blaming Israel for things which they know, and we have shown that they knew that this was their fault. And they have no qualms about showing off dead bodies which they know are their fault and blaming Israel, possibly igniting an entire region. When we saw those incidents, we couldn't believe, because we didn't think that's something the IDF would do. And we made sure to check that there was no technical malfunction with any bombs. And when we realized we had no strikes within the area at that time, we checked our operational systems, checked our radar, saw that there was trajectory rocket fire from nearby the hospital. We analyzed the aerial footage and saw that the blast detonation was not blasts that resulted IDF missiles, but rather more likely from rockets. And we intercepted intelligence of Hamas operatives talking about how they realized it was an Islamic Jihad missile rocket that fell short, and what are they going to do? Once we had checked and rechecked and double-checked our information, we released it. That takes time, and the damage was already done in the media. And I'm sure you've seen that around the world, we were condemned by world leaders. There were riots throughout the Middle East. The damage is done. And that is an example of the disadvantage that we are at in this asymmetric conflict. But we are comfortable with that disadvantage because we know that at the end of the day, those who abide by the rule of law, those who live by the values of peace and caring for life, we will win. We also have this challenge in the north. And I think the IDF, Israel, and the US, including President Biden, have made it very clear that no one wants to see this conflict widen, and we're hoping that that will be the case. So we thank everyone for their support. We thank the US, we thank President Biden and all the military who are here supporting Israel, and we hope that we continue to stand side by side.